So now we are ready to go into the footing detail and put the dimensions and notes that are required on it. So I'm going to go back into model space, and I am going to set my scale to the 1 inch equals a foot, so that hopefully all of my dimensions and stuff come in correctly and I will be in good shape. If I look back at the detail, there are lots of notes on the hand-drawn section. So that's where I'm going to start. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to ignore all of this here. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to go where my dimensions are, and I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it S-Dims Footing. And I'm going to set that as my current layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is put the basic dimensions on here that I need. I know my detail is kind of cut off over here, so I've got to be careful that I stay within kind of this box. That's why it's kind of a nice thing to have this box here, because then I know where my limits are. So if I go to my dimensions, one of the first ones I need to do is I need to do the dimension from the footing to the center of the column, and I can do continue over to there. Then I'm going to do an overall in that direction. And again, my dimension is on my grid line, so I want to move that over some so that I can read it very clearly. Now probably over here is a good place to do these dimensions, and then come back over here to do these dimensions. Because with our hatch, it makes it kind of hard sometimes to see those dimensions. So I'm going to pick here and here, and again I'm going to come over to right about here, and then I'm going to do continue up to here. Now when I go back and look at my detail, I got to make sure I can read these. I may need to, and I'm just going to assume that I'm going to need to, I may need to pull this one out to here and pull this one down to here so that they are easier to read. It gets them out of the hatching area. So now I have the dimensions covered for the slab and the gravel. I need to put the depth of the footing. Again, I'm going to pull it out so that it's out of my hatch area so that it's easy to read. So I believe I have all of the dimensions that I need at this point. So now I need to create a new layer for my notes that need to go on this. So I'm going to call it S-Notes Footing. I'm going to make that my current layer. So the first thing I want to start noting is my column. So I'm going to go to my annotate, to my multi-leader, and I'm going to pick in my column somewhere, and I want to stay down kind of close to the bottom so that my viewport that I have set up, this will not be cut off. And I'm going to put in column, to be 8-inch tube steel. And the detail, the hand sketch, it doesn't call it out that way, but it referred us to the book and we found that information out. So that's why we've put that here in our note. The next note we need is for the base plate. So I'm going to pick the corner of the base plate and I'm going to pull it up here. I like for my leader lines to somewhat align, and I'm going to pull it down a certain distance so it's easy to read, and I'm going to put in base plate, and I'm going to refer it back to the base plate detail. I don't like to repeat notes that might possibly change. Right now the base plate is set for a certain size, but it could potentially change to a different size, and if I have it noted in 3 or 4 different places, then I have to go to those places and do that. So I like to say see detail and refer it back to that particular detail where that information is going to be located. The next thing I need to note is the anchor bolt, and I really should have done it before because we don't like notes and dimensions to cross each other. So I'm going to go ahead and do the anchor bolt note, and I'm going to squeeze it in between the two. and then I can stretch it out if I need to. And again, on the anchor bolts, I'm going to refer it to the general notes because there are general notes that are going to apply to that, and I don't, again, want to repeat that information more than once. So I'm going to put C, general notes. The next thing that I'm going to note is the concrete. And again, I only want to note it and refer it to the general notes because there again is information in the general notes about how the concrete is to be done. So I'm going to put in concrete slab, C, general notes. Next, I need to note my welded wire mesh. So I'm going to type in the 6x6 10/10 welded wire mesh, and you'll notice that it's stacked the 10/10. That's really not the way that it's written, so I need to go in and edit that, and I can just click on it and I will get the little lightning bolt, and then I can choose to remove the stacked or the diagonal and make it the way it's supposed to be written. The next thing I have is the gravel and my rebar and stuff. So I'm going to pull those notes down to the bottom right because again, I don't want to cross more things than I have to. So I'm going to pick my gravel and I'm going to type in compacted gravel. I've kind of gone outside of my box, but I will probably have to go back and adjust my viewport window. So the next one is my vapor barrier. And again, I'm going to refer that to the general notes because there is a general note in regards to the vapor barrier. We don't show any thickness for the vapor barrier because it is really not very thick. So we're going to say vapor barrier, C, general notes. The next thing I need to note is my rebar, and I am going to note it as far as the diameter and such, but there is also a general note, if you look at the notes, that talks about the rebar itself. So I'm going to call it out and refer it to the general notes. And I need to pick both the round and the line. So I'm going to pick the round one first, and I'm going to type in, just like it is, I'm going to put in the parentheses 12, and I'm going to put in number 8, and I'm going to put in each way. And then I'm going to also put C, general notes, because there's some additional information there for that. And I need to also call out the line, the dashed line, so I'm going to do add leader and pick the line, and then it refers it to both of them. So that pretty much takes care of that detail, except for I do need to add the word square onto that footing because we're not doing a section the other direction, so they need to know that it is square. If I type in dim edit, D-I-M-E-D-I-T, and you'll see it pops up over here on the right, this little detail, and you'll notice it has a purple background. I have to space over and not delete that because that is the automatic dimension. So I'm going to type in a space and then I'm going to put in SQ period. And then I come back after I hit enter and click on the dimension and it will add it. And then I do need to slide that over again a little bit to get it off of my grid line. So now I think I am complete with this dimension and noting for the footing. So now I'm going to go back to my sheet and I want to make sure that nothing is cut off and nothing is missing. Over here to the right, I do have it cut off, so I need to stretch that out. So that I can see all of my information. So that detail is pretty well complete. So I still need to add some notes to my base plate detail and to my anchor bolt plan that we did not do the other day. So I'm going to go into my eave strut, or to my enlarged detail of the base plate, and I'm going to create another layer for my notes. And again, I had notes 2 that I used before, and so I'm going to continue to use that for this particular detail. So I'm going to go to my multi-leader, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call out the anchor bolts, and again I'm going to refer it to the general notes. So I'm going to put in anchor bolt C general notes. And then I'm going to call out the base plate. And the base plate, I'm actually going to give the information here because on my other detail, I referred it to here. So I'm going to put in 12 inches. I'm going to put in base plate to be 12 inches by 12 inches by 1/2 inch, and I always put the thickness last. And now I'm going to call out the column, and I'm basically just going to steal the note from over here so that I make sure that I say it exactly the same way. And then I'm going to move my arrowhead . And I'm going to change the format of my text so that it reads a little bit better. Then I'm going to move the note and place it where it aligns with my other notes. One other thing I need to identify in this is my edge of slab. So again, I'm going to add a note. It says edge of slab. And now that I've done that, I just noticed that I had not changed my annotation scale. So I need to change all my text to be at 1.5 inch equals a foot. I can do this by picking all of them, going to properties and checking the annotation scale and going in and adding 1.5 inch equals a foot. Say okay. Then picking on the 1.5 inch equals a foot and saying okay. So now when I go to the detail for this, everything is the right dimension. But one thing is I've cut off a note there on the left side, so I need to stretch the left side of my drawing out. I need to get rid of my overall dimension lines that are showing, so I'm going to go into my layers and I'm going to turn S dimensions off in my viewport, and now I have that problem resolved. Now I see that I have a problem with a note cut off at the bottom. So I'm going to stretch the bottom part down until that note is visible. I stretched it down a little too far, so I'm going to stretch it back up some. That looks better. This detail is now in pretty good shape. I have my dimensions, I have my notes, and I think it is completed. Now I need to add a note to my anchor bolt plan. I need to identify the edge of the slab, so I'm going to change my annotation scale back to 1/4 inch equals a foot. And I'm going to go back to my multi-leader, and I'm going to pick over here on this side, and I'm going to type in edge of slab. And I'm going to type in TYP period, and that stands for typical. That way I don't have to identify it on all 4 sides of the slab. I need to make sure that is on my correct layer, which is my notes layer. So now if I go back and I look at my drawing, I'm in pretty good shape there. I am going to move this detail over a little bit because it's kind of crunching into the other one, and I have plenty of room on my paper. So this detail I think is pretty well done. This detail is done. If I go to S2, this detail still is missing a couple of notes. So I need to go back into my model space, and I'm missing some things over here. So I need again to make sure I'm in the right scale, and this one is 1 inch equals a foot. And go to my multi-leader, and one of the first things I want to call out is this base angle. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to type in base angle. Then I need to type in the wall sheeting, so I'm going to select the wall panel and type in wall sheeting. Now I think I have all of the notes that I need on this particular drawing. So again, I'm going to go back to my sheet. I'm going to check it to make sure I haven't cut anything off. It looks good. I am going to move my north arrow because it is bothering me where it's at. So I'm going to move it up above my title block since I have more room on my sheet. The last thing that we have to do is we have to do our eave detail notes on it, and we also need to add our general notes to our drawing. So the next video will be on the eave detail.